thing is when we buy that used car, we're lucky to get 3 to 4 years out of it. A new car, we're going to easily get 10. And so you can easily see the advantages to that. And the other issue is I've been looking for used cars everywhere, but every municipality is in the same place we are, and they're keeping their cars longer. So the city of Bothell was a good source for us when we were buying their used police cars. But of course, when you buy a used car and it already has 100,000 miles on it, you pay for that, the equipment, and you're doing immediate maintenance right off the get-go with those cars. And Bothell is not selling their used cars because they have now increased their number of officers. They hired 10 or 15 officers last year alone, and so we're not seeing those cars. All of our cars were over 100,000 miles, and breaking down and not having a reliable car is detrimental to the police department, obviously. So looking at the future, looking at what we need to do to get caught up, I asked for 6 cars because that's what we need. And I obviously don't want to do 6 cars in 1 year because 10 years from now, you're gonna need 6 again. So the goal was here is to start with the 3 that we could afford this year and hopefully continue with at least buying 1 brand new car a year. Like I said, we can get 10 cars out of them. If we have 10 officers, that's a perfect rotation. And so there was a lot of thought and process into that.
Thanks, Chief.
Hey,
Other comments?
thank you.
You know, it just seems to me that we need to take a more holistic view of this whole thing, right? We need to take a look at the agreement we've got. I mean, that could be just me because I haven't seen it. You know, costs are going up everywhere, so I'm not saying that it's not valid, but relative to our revenues, you know, we have to take, you know, we just have to look at it from a different viewpoint. Because if that's what the true costs are, whether we fund the police or not, then we have to figure out a way to get revenue to make it. And I'm still, in my mind, think it's a better deal to team up with Cleveland, but I think that should be tested. And, you know, whether we form a subcommittee to look at all that stuff and get information, or whether people know the answers immediately, but I just think it's something that, and I don't think it's gonna be unique to this issue. As Nolan said, I mean, I think it's gonna be the same with, you know, utilities, it's gonna be the same with fire, you know, it's gonna be the same cross border, costs are going up everywhere. And, you know, if we don't get on top of it, we're gonna find ourselves like a year from now, you know, just taking more and more out of reserves. So I think we have to take a look at all this stuff. Now, it could be, I'm new on the council, I don't have all the information, you guys may intuitively know all this stuff, and I'd be happy to hear about it. But, I mean, that's kind of where my head's at. You know, we obviously have to have police enforcement, so we're gonna pass this. And I think when we discussed it a few months ago, we said that we'd look at it in the future to see where we're going. But I can continue that.
I think you have a good point. We can sort of watch how self-command moves forward and how that works out.
Right.
And as we get closer down the road, you know, 6 months down the road, it's probably a good way to sort of weigh on to that and how that's working out and if any issues came up.
And then even the relative populations of Clallam and Roslyn, how much time is spent, you know, the agreements were written some time ago, maybe that balance has changed, maybe we're funding too much, maybe we'll find out we're funding too little, I don't know, but, you know, we're a municipality, so it's open book, whatever it is, but we have to know that we're doing the right thing.
Other comments, council? All right, well, as it stands right now, all in favor of passing the police contract for 2022, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say nay. Okay. And lastly, we have the 2022 budget. Can I get a motion to pass the budget?
I'll make a motion to pass the 2022 budget.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion, council? I'll speak to the CARES right now. You know, we have no idea. There's no intention of spending it. There's no intention. It's in there because we have to put it in there to be able to spend it. And we did get the money, so the money's in the bank. In this case, the previous CARES programs didn't work like that, they were reimbursable. This one, we got half of it up front, and we got half of it for 2023. There are no plans, I have no plans, it has to be spent very specifically on infrastructure, things that were affected by COVID, and what that means, I have no idea. It's
Very vague.
like the West Seattle Bridge or something, I don't know, so I have no plans of spending it. We can't spend it on salaries, we can't spend it on computers, we can't spend it on office supplies, or. Now, I'm not saying we can't come up with something, and, CARES did affect, or COVID has affected quite a bit, I don't know how much of our infrastructure it's affected. So, it's just a line item, it's not, we're not trying to hide anything or trick anybody.
No.
Any projects pushed back a tiny bit?
Well, the
Right.
sidewalk project comes up in
That's
a
all
bit
that is,
of
like
time.
Mhm.
That's,
If we can get away, if we can use
Does it
that
work
for
like
that.
that?
Yeah, right, 'cause,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I will spend the entire
Mhm.
60,000 or whatever the bid ends up being in the spring.
But we should probably dig, I think that's a good point right there, because you could really get into even meetings of some infrastructures, I think, that get delayed, that would expedite
Yep.
certain projects faster. Those delays, those could, I think we really need to, Public Works probably get down and look at some of the bigger capital projects and what type of delays may have came about with those, and if there's any percentage of something that we can recoup, I mean, that's what the money's for.
Right.
Obviously not trying to cheat anyway, but I think being
Right.
just honest about what delays, and we've obviously had office effect, I mean, anybody wants to say we lost a clerk.
Yeah.
We had to lose back an employee, we lost a clerk at a time for a year. That's our city's not probably considered an infrastructure for the building, but
Right.
it is impactful,
Sure.
We've hit stuff, and I think we probably need to get together and obviously present those as we move forward and see what, legitimately fits into the category.
And the Public Works Committee is a great place, I think. to start
I think it's a
with
great
that.
place to start, and
The
we
cover,
could just as well get with the engineer on some of the
reservoir cover,
project
maybe.
plans that we had kicked off with Bubba, and see what really is out there. I mean, that's a great point, Jeff, by the way.
Well, yeah, what about the old city hall project, like we had bids go out and
We
nobody,
Totally
Jeff
affected.
is-
nobody
Yeah.
ever
Jeff
bid
mentioned
because
that,
we
too.
were behind the game and we had these grants out, we were on a
They couldn't
timetable
start.
there.
Yep, we've had work effects, all sorts of stuff. I
Yeah.
think that's a great point.
If we can, again, like you said, as long as it's honest and we don't
Yep.
have to pay it later on because we messed up, that's all I care
It's gotta
about.
be legitimate.
Well, we gotta ask for.
Yes, yeah. Not ask for permission or forgiveness later.
Yep, another place to look is, I looked at the Clay Ellen budget, and they actually did manage to spend something like $80,000 of CARES money last year. And, it'd be interesting to see what they spend it on.
Right.
And I think it might have been in the police budget, I'll go back and take a look at it.
Yeah, so that first batch of money we got that he was talking about that was reimbursable could be spent on that kind of stuff. We did spend some of that.
Mhm.
But that had to be, you had to submit it, they approved it, and then they reimbursed the city for those costs. But it's this is again, we go back to the same thing that the whole budget was being created in that spreadsheet outside. It's probably not even, it's that money that we're getting part of this year and part of next year is not technically defined as CARES money. It's part of that CARES program.
Right.
But it's actual part of an infrastructure bill that was passed as a result of that. So it's specific to infrastructure. So this is very different than that first chunk of money that we got.
I assume they'll release a few more details as more questions arise, if the money gets spent or not, you think?
I would think so.
Hopeful.
I
If
would
not,
assume
is
the
there
rules
a
will change.
resource that we could bounce things off of, that gives us a straight
Yeah,
answer?
so they keep releasing little bits at a time, but yeah, I would assume by the, in January, we should see some more direct guidance, because that's when people will start spending.
Yeah, okay.
We're
Right.
wanting
So that's
to
all, I'm
spend
just
it.
looking for sort of like a contact point, we can bounce in for, this is how we look at something, how, what does that fit into that category, or that, what they're actually expecting, so we don't go down the wrong rabbit hole, we actually focus on the right things that we can actually be reimbursed with.
But
we won't be applying to use it again?
Answer Kathy's question about the Cleon CARES money. They took part of that and did grants for small business,
And you could with that
and then they got
first.
reimbursed for it.
Yep.
They did some of that with that
Yep.
$80,000.
Okay.
And that was the first CARES Act, which was reimbursable. That wasn't the checks that came in it was October.
I think we got this, the
September, I think
first
we got
half
the
was
first one.
half, yeah.
133 or whatever.
And we got another
133,
135 coming, so.
Mhm.
But there just isn't a lot of clarification on it yet. I've been asking the commissioners what they're doing with their big chunk, and they're being real tentative right now, because they don't know what's gonna be approved and what's not, so.
And when we had
Everybody's
that
waiting for more
meeting,
clarification on how to spend.
yeah, and
Okay.
when we had that meeting with Shire's office, it was the same thing, and they're
Yeah.
still trying to get clarification.
Yeah.
So it's not unique to us that we're not positive what we can use it for, so.
questions on this budget that we've been talking about for 6 weeks?
No, one thing I'd like to talk about the budget though, if we pass this budget tonight, is when we get through the first quarter, I mean, I think it's really important that we look at the actuals coming in, actuals going out, and we have another, whether it's a special meeting with everybody. But I think we need to actually, and if we need to do an amendment at that time, you know, the audit's gonna be coming through, which is gonna be another reset or a recheck. And it won't, I don't think it'll be done by the first quarter. But I'd like to, I mean, cautiously, if this budget passes, I need to be reassured that when that first quarter ends, that we're gonna take a look at the actuals and really dig in to see if there's any, you know, missteps that we've seen in this budget that we can correct before we get too far down this year. And then same with the audit, as the audit comes through, you know, as a group together in a team, we look at what, if there's mistakes, what those mistakes are, and how we get ahead the right way, and what we need to do. And I guess all I'm asking is that we really focus on, you know, I wanna see this budget pass, but I wanna make sure we reassure ourselves that we correct anything that comes up in the net, through the first quarter, and then as the audit comes through, not that we wouldn't anyways, but, really prioritize that. And that was just one thing I wanna be reassured if we pass this budget, that we will do that as a group.
You know, and I would ask that we can get admin and public works to meet monthly, you know, one each, like had them, the
Yeah.
common practice.
Yeah, I just,
And then I think just at that point, then, you know, an admin conceivably at the end of the quarter would have looked at it for 3 months.
yeah, I mean, just like we started, I think it was 6 months when I started joining the group, we started getting some actuals and looking at our budget, and we were able to keep track of, you know, every couple months how things were going, and we were doing really well on how our budget and spending and percentages were getting spent through the year. But I just wanna make sure that, you know, I'm not trying to say she's not a treasurer, I think she's done a fantastic job. She's been put between a rock and a hard space, Michelle, in the office here, losing our treasurer right in the middle of this thing. And you know, you can't keep burdening her when she's not the actual treasurer. She's done a great job trying to pick up the pieces to get us here. And the only way I feel comfortable is if we go back after the first quarter and really dig into those numbers and make sure we're following the track that we expected.
Yeah, we
And if there's not, we do a recourse.
Yeah, we work with our new treasurer, and we get happy with the process that we go down.
Yeah, I mean, it's nobody's fault here that we're in the situation we're in. It's
Yeah.
not your fault, okay? You know, we lost a treasurer, right in the middle of where we needed a treasurer.
And an experienced clerk.
And, you know, and an experienced clerk. I mean, it's been a very frustrating year and a half with COVID and the impacts that we've had. And, you know, I think our office staff has bent over backwards trying to provide information that they're not familiar digging in for us. And I really feel that they've done a great job trying to do that and provide us with every bit of information. And yes, there might have been some time delays, but, what else do you do? I mean, we've dug as deep as we can to find somebody to help out with it, and I think, you know, our staff's done a great job of doing it. And so all I ask is that if we pass this budget, that we really dig in after that first quarter, and same with the audit, and we attack those issues right off the bat and make adjustments on the fly.
Yeah, and I would add that at the end of the first quarter,
Mhm.
that we have a meeting with the full council.
Yep,
with all of
absolutely.
us,
If there needs to be a budget amendment, we
Yeah.
make that budget amendment at
Right.
that time, and, if we see we need to cut somewhere, we make that tough cut. I think we just have to be prepared for what might, you know, that we have to be in that situation, so we have a nice clean budget as we move forward, and something that we're really confident in as we move.
And this is actually way different than what we were looking at a month ago,
Mhm.
you know? And I'd like to actually thank citizens like Doug and Ellie who brought a lot of these issues forward. That's been really helpful, and also I'd like to thank Michelle and Victoria who've been working to get this straightened out too, so.
We spent a lot of time put it in the last couple of months for somebody that hasn't done the position,
Right, yeah.
and put a lot, you know, a lot of information out there with a lot of other things going on, and, not that that's an excuse to pass the budget, I mean, we're spending a lot of money, you know, but we have a lot of projects, and, I mean, I've had this talk with numerous people, the infrastructure projects that we're putting money at, especially like the transmission line, you know, a couple $100,000 in engineering, you know, that needs to be spent up front. That's an investment, you know, and I've sent Schreiers another email just a couple weeks ago about the money and, about the infrastructure plan that's been passed, and, you know, they know we're anxious for a water line. They know, you know, I pointed out the lead, the issues that we've had, and, being ready and shovel ready, these investments are down the road, huge investments. You know, we know that we're back on some of our chlorinators, we know that the Scadia stuff's been out of date. I mean, these are things that have just been kicked down the road, it just feels like they're all hitting at once, but what do you do when it's going south? I mean, I just feel like this is sort of a time we have to invest some of the money that we have to get ahead down the road.
Council?
Is the attorney good with this, or are we in legal,
Yes,
about legal compliance with
absolutely.
that?
I'm sorry, that was the other question we had was compliance.
Okay.
It is compliant.
Okay. And I just wanna make sure we pass a, you know, compliant budget and not put you or anybody else in a situation, so that was something.
And as was mentioned, I'm sure you guys noticed that we're starting an audit right now, so.
Who's doing it? Who's the
It's
auditor?
the same people
The
as
state.
last time.
Yeah, but who's the?
Oh, gosh, I don't know,
Jose.
Leah's been getting.
Oh, I
No,
forgot
it's
her
not
name, she
Jose,
sent me
it's
an
the
email.
It's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
she works under Jose,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Same one that did.
They're starting this year? Or they're waiting to?
Yeah, they
just
Oh,
started.
they already started.
Well,
They'll-
it'll be
They started.
January, but
Oh.
Yeah, the intake meeting will start in the next couple of weeks, she sent me an email.
with Christmas, yeah.
Yep,
with
and so I'll be on the
Christmas,
email, and I'll take the intake meeting with them as well with Brett and Michelle. They needed one, so they put me on, so I've been in contact with them already.
Yeah, okay. So we'll know.
So that'll be in January, so probably.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty
Where
much,
they
you know,
start
get done.
asking the real
Yeah,
questions,
and
and
get done.
then February they give us the results. and-
Jeff, do you remember like how long the last, it was like 4 or 5 months, the last one?
The last one was under me.
Was it under you?
Yeah,
Was that the
my
one with the
first
snow clump
year.
that fell off the roof?
No,
Oh.
Yeah, so they're
I bought 'em
typically
apart.
here till February, March, and then
Yeah,
it takes
2-3 months.
another
Okay,
few
just
months
try-
before you
Three
get the,
months here.
It'd be great if it was done by the first quarter, and then we had that
Well,
first, it'd be awesome.
Results will be summer.
it'll be
Okay.
summer when you get the results.
They usually tell you how it went.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be great if there's some issue, you know, if there is issues that is brought up and we were able to hear them first quarter, so we could sort of, have a plan of how we want to look at it.
Anything else, other council?
So if we push this off, is this data gonna change anything? This is what.
The
we got.
numbers,
Yeah,
no,
this is what we got.
this is the
We
budget.
could keep
I mean, I guess you
beating this
could-
for weeks.
It's not to say the mayor couldn't change it, but yeah, even if we spent 3 more weeks, the numbers themselves, how we present it, I guess you could change that, but not the number itself.
And remember, you're always voting on the bottom line.
Yeah.
Okay, council, all in favor of the 2022 budget, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say nay. 2022 budget passes.
So we look at it first things.
Mayor, council concerns, yeah, and I'll just start off and say I totally agree. And obviously in January, we'll set who's gonna be in COG, who's gonna be in the different committees, who's gonna be involved with all the different things that council is involved in outside of the meeting. And then we can start setting timelines as to which Tuesdays which, and those kind of things, and we can stay on it. I'm very pleased with my hiring, as I always have been. I felt that Burnett did really well for us, and Michelle has done really well. I've been very fortunate in the people that apply for these jobs, and I feel like I have a great team, including our public works is kicking ass, so. I have all the confidence in the world that 2022 is gonna be a banner year for reaching out and letting people understand what's going on out here.
And with helping with that, Mayor, too, in the last 2 years, and I know everything's kind of happened, COVID, blah, 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 but I'd like to have 2022, kind of a different year too, with, your leadership pointing us in the direction that you would like to see council on our special projects and holding us accountable. I think we have a great council, I think we have a great team, I think we have a good leader. I think for 2022, just pushing our committees and the different things that we're doing as council members is holding us accountable, and timelines, and just holding us to those projects.
And be more goal oriented and hold us to the fire on it. And
Yeah.
some things that we need to be done, you see, and telling groups, you know, this is what we'd like to see, and hold us to the fire a little bit. I think that'd be great, and set goals for that for next year. One thing I want to bring up for the budget, and I know, I believe I brought it up several times last year about the B&O that we had talked about passing back onto the residents at some point, and I was always told first of the year. So is that something that happens in January, or is that something that had to happen in the last month in in the busy
My
season.
recollection when we did the last time, yeah, there's 2 opportunities during the year. I'll have to look and see when it
Okay,
is.
not trying to throw another
Yeah.
bunch of
It
work
has
at
to
you,
do
but
with
it's
when our
something, it's a
fees increase,
It is
so,
a chunk of revenue that
Yeah.
would be taken off our table that is usually paid for by residents, and we've been taking that burden. And not that I wanna throw it at residents, but I think we need to, it's a bit of revenue that should fall back in within our budget, I think. It's just my opinion. We've asked about it, and I think everybody at one point agreed to it, and so I'd like to see where that is and what the timing is, and we don't miss the opportunity if that's possible.
Anything else, Council?
I guess, the only thing I heard about the water system plan and, about data being lost and that sort of thing, and I'm a little confused because I'm currently reading a water system plan.
Right.
I'm about halfway done with it. It looks like based on my experience, competent document, and I'm just wondering what was lost. Or what
Michelle,
was
do you have any info?
I don't
I
remember
don't-
that comment, to be honest with you.
yeah, I don't know that I'm not aware that any data was lost. The issue that Theo had is the previous public works director kept everything in binders, so we had it only in hard copy. So what that means is it had to be manually transferred rather than
Oh, okay.
pulled. I'm not personally aware that we actually lost any. It was just hard to accumulate the data to update within that new
That's all I
draft.
understood as
Okay.
well.
I mean, there's a,
Yeah, so-
there's a 8-year tabulation of past water
Yeah.
metering that's part of the record, and I was just curious about that.
So the state has all these records too, and if you.
Well, it's,
Yeah, we have to turn that in annually, so I don't, yeah, the state would also have it.
But,
Yeah.
okay, so that, it was just a Word document that it was,
Well, that was when we pulled that, we could not find anything on Mike's computer that had it in like a
Gotcha.
Excel format where we could pull the data in easily. It
Gotcha.
all had to be manually
okay.
taken from, the printed copy. So he had binders that he had to work from rather than just being able to take a draft and revise the draft,
But
basically.
what I understood from Theo is, it was completed, a draft was prepared, submitted to DOH.
Yep.
It's in their queue,
Correct.
Yep.
it's gonna take a while, but it's
Yes.
in your queue,
Yes.
okay.
Your understanding is correct.
Year process, I think you said,
What's that?
a year review or so.
Yeah.
It sounded
Yeah.
like.
But it sounded like we were in the safe zone when he had applied, he had been in full contact with him for the past year and a half since.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have been.
When he
Yep.
came aboard and it was not done, knowing it had to be done, and he jumped on that right away.
Yeah.
And we've had a relationship with him since then, so, it didn't seem like that was jeopardized, it seemed like it was really just getting it submitted, and we've been doing his due diligence, so.
Yeah, he seems like he's fully capable of doing it.
The document looks very competent.
Mhm.
It's pretty formatic, DOH they have these, forms, and you have to do all the various things, but it seems to hit all the issues as far as I can tell.
And with your experience, that's good knowledge, thank you.
Yeah.
So I have, I guess I'd like to just know, when the meeting started, we heard from, Daryl Chakota,
Mhm.
who,
Daryl Junior, yes.
okay, who said that he was subjected to discrimination in our fire department. And I'm wondering, as a council, do we
The first I've heard of it, I gotta be honest with you, I mean, I knew Sky